Welcome to PACKOLUTION. In this podcast series, you'll hear the experts of the packaging industry talking about sustainability and the future of packaging. It is brought to you by Vatron and hosted by one of its founders, Michaela Wachtel, and Sales Director Ton Kniepscher.
Welcome to another episode of PACKOLUTION, the disruptive podcast brought to you by Vatron. Today we have Thomas Eicher, Chief Sales Officer at CreaPaper, as our guest, with whom we'll be talking about a completely new raw material for packaging, grass. Welcome, Thomas.
So our standard first question is, could you please briefly tell us something about yourself, Thomas, and your career path?
Yeah, of course. Many thanks for having me today, and many thanks for providing us a platform to talk about more sustainable packaging offers. Personally, I spent the majority of my career, more than 25 years, in consumer packaged goods. My focus was on food products packed in paper, cardboard, or plastic. In the companies I was working with, there was more and more an increasing focus on sourcing and carbon footprint of the ingredients. Yet I felt there was not enough focus on packaging apart from weight reduction. More or less at the same time, I got in touch with CreaPaper, and fairly quickly we agreed that I would join as managing director to drive both the internal structures and external sales. And this is what I've been doing now for the last 12 months.
So let's switch to CreaPaper, as you already touched on. CreaPaper is producing grass fiber, raw material, replacing virgin or recycled tree-based fibers. What is the underlying idea?
Our mission is to make every paper, packaging, and tissue product more sustainable. We are producing grass fiber raw material, we call it grass pulp, replacing virgin or recycled tree-based fibers in packaging, paper, and tissue. The paper and tissue industry is using virgin or recycled fibers from plants' origin. Today, this is primarily done with tree-based fibers. The process to extract the fibers from the wood is high in consumption of energy, water, and chemistry. The reason is the natural glue called lignin. As a rule of thumb, the higher the plant, the more lignin is included in the plants. Wood, on average, contains 25% of lignin. The much smaller grass, on the contrary, contains only 5% of lignin and can be treated with a purely mechanical process to be used later on in the packaging. As a consequence, our production process of grass fibers in our plant in Düren only requires less than 3% of the energy consumption, which normally would be used for the production of virgin fibers, and less than 1% of the water, and no chemistry at all. Grass pulp has been developed as a drop-in solution then for the paper mills we are working with. CreaPaper provides them with the grass fibers that can be used in the paper and tissue mills to partly substitute virgin and recycled tree-based fibers. And with our partner paper mills, they are producing paper with a share of grass up to 40%. Mm-hmm. We, on our end, we are in the process of evolving the technology and are positive to double that share. And grass paper, to be comprehensive in the end, we as well as an organization, we are selling grass paper, packaging and tissue products in order to promote the availability of grass paper.
It's a good point that you touch on that, because most people seem to underestimate the amount of energy and water used for producing normal paper. And I think it's a good step and a good step forward if with grass paper you do this differently, if you use less paper and less energy and less water.
It's definitely, Don, as you say, this is about, we are trying to reduce the footprint in energy, in water consumption. We are extremely low in the water consumption. In the LCA, we require significantly less water. But on the other hand as well, we are using a resource with grass that is more or less available everywhere. It's there 1 billions of tons available globally. In Germany, it would translate into 7 million tons. In Europe, 80 million tons. So this is purely available everywhere.
How sustainable is grass actually as a raw material when you look at the big picture? We know that it definitely grows faster than trees. But how is this in the bigger picture? Like, what are the advantages and disadvantages compared to conventional raw materials like wood pulp or recycled fibers?
In addition to the global availability of grass, we at CreaPaper, we mainly source the grass from permanent grasslands, which means the grass is untreated, there's no extra watering, the grass is constantly regrowing, and actually the mowing serves like hair cutting. It avoids the lignifying of the grass and thus, on the other hand, supports biodiversity. And talking about biodiversity today is extremely important. With our current usage of forests, we are actually reducing biodiversity because forests are home to most of land-based biodiversity. And forests, on the other hand, on top of that, they are one of the most important carbon sinks for mitigating climate change. And more, there's pressure on the forests. And the loss of forests is one of the leading causes of not capturing enough carbon dioxide. So our mission, to some extent, is to more and more replace trees by grass and thus ensure that more and more trees are available to do their job to capture carbon dioxide. And unfortunately, in today's world, and this is not only driven by the paper industry, there is more and more pressure on trees by deforestation and so on. So, yeah, with that, we hope that more and more we use grass in the paper industry, and that's what our technology provides.
How does grass paper behave printing compared to conventional papers? Does it have different characteristics?
In principle, you can do the same things with grass papers you can do with standard paper. You can print grass paper in the same way you do print conventional paper. Yes, at the beginning, when we did it for the first time, we had some problems specifically in offset printing. These are solved today. We know what we need to do, how to treat the paper, how to treat the grass fibers at the paper mills. On top of that, you can apply coating and so on, like with conventional paper, for example. We are just in the process of developing a sealing grass paper with specific functionalities, and that should be available during the second half of 2023.
And now I'm curious about the manufacturing process at CreaPaper. Do you produce the material yourselves, or is it some other company doing that for you?
So what we are doing, in the first place, we are sourcing grass. Actually, we are sourcing hay for better storage. We are sourcing that in Europe. Then CreaPaper produces the grass fibers. We produce this in our Düren plant. This process is purely mechanical, which again is driving the high savings in energy and water. And these fibers, they are then shipped to the paper and tissue production companies where they produce paper, packaging, and tissue products.
Are there any limitations for your material, for your grass paper or grass cardboard for packaging applications? Are they suitable for the same packaging formats as normal paper and cardboard? What about the hygiene of the packaging? Do you have barrier layers against waters and grease and other food products?
In general, the paper you're producing with grass fibers has the same functionalities, applications, limitations as conventional paper. The grass fibers, in the first place, they're certified for food contact. The grass fibers we produce, they are certified for food contact. The grass paper itself is available in different weights with coatings in combination with virgin or recycled fibers. In terms of different applications, there are, amongst others, we use it, or currently it's used in folding boxes, in fruit and vegetable trays, in carrying bags, in one-touch applications, in fast food, burger boxes, coffee cups, and so on. And on top of that, there are products, tissue products like kitchen roll, toilet papers, and napkins.
Is it possible to compare the fiber length and the fiber strength of grass paper to normal virgin paper?
It's, of course, what is important in the end is the performance. And yes, at this point in time, the performance of the individual fiber is not exactly the same as the virgin fiber is. That's the reason why currently the paper we are producing is a blend, a combination of the grass fiber with virgin fibers. It's in paper and packaging products. We currently have a share of up to 40% of grass fibers in the blends with virgin or recycled fibers, but we are upgrading our technology. This is mainly linked how we treat the grass fibers, and we're very positive to significantly increase that share.
Okay, let's get a little bit global here. You're a German company. And what about the global impact? Can the packaging made from your material be used internationally, like anywhere in the world, or are there global differences?
It's in the first place. What we really need is grass. And again, for storage purposes, we are using hay. Grass hay is available globally, the 1.2 billion tons I mentioned earlier. Currently, we are only sourcing in Europe. In terms of, yes, our evolution, we've got international expansion on our agenda. What we would do then, we would source the grass, respectively the hay, locally, and produce grass fibers for the paper industry locally in order to avoid long supply chains. What most likely we would do in the starting phase, we would use our mobile units. Funny name, we call it CreaPaper. We have developed that, and it can be used in our fiber production in the second half of this year.
How popular is grass paper packaging already? Do many packaging companies already use this new material? Or are maybe some companies that say, I don't know yet if I can use it. I'm a little bit curious.
It's, of course, relative to the huge tissue paper and packaging industry, grass paper at this point in time is still a challenger, fairly small. But its applications and its usages are growing, and with that, there's more and more interest. There are more and more examples of progressive companies that use grass paper in various applications. For example, grass paper folding boxes, which are used by confectionery companies like Lindt, or tea companies here in Germany, Bad Heilbrunner and Teg Schwendner. You'll find fruit and vegetable trays at Rewe and Aldi, carrying bags at food retailers, again, like Rewe and Edeka, and fashion retailers like Peek and Kloppenburg or Wildfish, and several German Bundesliga football clubs actually are using these. And on top, there are in one-touch applications like fast food burger boxes, coffee cups, and burger wraps. You'll find that as well. And even more, as I mentioned earlier, we've got kitchen rolls, which are sold in Switzerland, in Germany, Luxembourg. And on top, there are companies approaching us for new developments to look into how to treat the grass fibers in order to ensure the best application in their respective products. That's, for example, where we're working currently with one of the global tissue companies. So it's getting more and more popular, yes.
And what about disposal and recycling? Are the current recyclers accepting your material?
In principle, we've tested it. It's certified for recycling, and it can be included in the normal paper recycling waste stream. The only issue in that is because in the paper you can see the small particles of grass, and these small particles, they remain. But in terms of that, only kind of provides us with a bit lower recyclability rating, but is still recyclable.
Yeah, because in certain tree-based papers and boards, you can also see residues of the material.
Exactly.
And that's sometimes a marketing desire to do that, to design it that way.
And this is definitely, as you say, is the grass paper, which has a kind of natural beige color, and you can see the particles. That provides the kind of natural look and feel as well. And that's what some of the companies I mentioned earlier, they're using this specifically in terms of their positioning and communication.
I think it's also a distinction market.
I agree. Yeah.
So grass paper obviously offers tremendous potential. We just talked about this. What about the limits to its growth? How much material can be produced per year? Are there any restrictions, I'm wondering? And can it really replace conventional paper, or is there still a lack of production possibilities for it?
I think the first, in my perspective, only limitation in terms of applications might be or is in the finer graphical paper. And this is again due to the natural look and feel and the particles we just mentioned. So we don't use any bleaching agents, and you see the fibers in the end. When it comes to the growth, firstly, again, as mentioned earlier, we as mankind, we need to look for more sustainable offers. And based on that, again, the trend for more sustainable solutions is going to last. And in our perspective, we're only just at the beginning with grass paper. Again, we're going to evolve our technology and we're going to increase the fiber content. When it comes to our current production facilities, yes, they are limited in capacity. Currently, there is free capacity of but still more of 20,000 tons available for the production of grass fibers. But the lead time to set up a new plant wouldn't be too long. So in our perspective, we're set up for growth. And what we need to do is to promote more and more the availability of grass fibers in different applications. And that's what we're doing.
And what about the costs? Is it comparable to conventional paper? Because you mentioned that you were using a lot less energy and a lot less water. That must have a positive impact.
Absolutely. That impact is mainly on the fiber in the first place. The grass fiber and the manufacturing of grass fibers comes at a significantly lower cost relative to the virgin tree fibers. At this point in time, unfortunately, when it comes then to grass paper products, these grass paper products at this point in time are mainly penalized by scale. It means it's produced in relatively small lots. Not that the most efficient production lines, the complexity costs are driving the production price. As a consequence, at this point in time, grass paper on average is roughly 20% more expensive than virgin paper. Having said so, with scale and with us kind of pushing the popularity of grass paper, that's going to disappear relatively quickly.
That was going to be my next question. What about the scaling effects? Do you have a price point on the horizon? So if you say that's going to be comparable to normal paper, is that what you said?
Our objective is to be cheaper than normal paper.
Wow.
That's in terms of the raw material comes at a lower cost. Our production process comes at a lower cost. What we need to ensure midterm is that we are running with the same line efficiencies that the standard tree-based paper is running. And with that, we would be at a lower cost.
And I think what helps as well is the fact that paper is, as we already talked about, very energy inefficient process, paper producing. And if you can reduce the energy consumption, you would have a definite benefit.
Our reduction is mainly in the kind of everything that happens prior to the paper mill with our savings. Means at this point in time, that's comparing the grass fiber with the virgin or recycled pulp. The process within the paper mill is something that still needs to be looked into. And I think there are still as well savings that some companies today are already implementing.
We have reached the end of this episode. Is there anything that, it was really, really interesting. We learned so much, I think, about grass paper, but I think we've covered a lot. But is there anything else that you would like to add? Some last words?
I think, definitely in the first place, many thanks for having me today and providing on PACKOLUTION a platform to discuss sustainable packaging offers like grass paper made from grass pulp. But what I would want to say is, in principle, that we as mankind, we have the challenge to provide more and more sustainable solutions overall, not only in packaging. And this, for us as human beings and companies driving that, implies change on our usage and consumption habits. And that's what CreaPaper is trying to drive. We believe that trees can do a better job than only delivering fibers for the paper industry, and we are working hard to replace trees with grass. Our overall motto is every tree counts, and that's what we are driving.
So that concludes another episode of our podcast, PACKOLUTION. Thank you for sharing your experiences and vision with us. Very interesting for us and hopefully also for our listeners. Please stay tuned in this channel for more inspiring episodes of PACKOLUTION with experts and visionaries in the packaging industry.